They're different energies on that one. It's interesting that we talk about, we come both from striking arts, but a lot of people who might pick up on this and listen to this might come more from the grappling side of things. So your judo, your jiu-jitsu. Did you have much experience with those ones growing up?
Yeah, I did. Again, with the sports side of things, you and the different clubs that we trained with, like my father and I think some people rather could go through martial arts, or maybe even the majority of people that go through their martial arts career, be it 6 months to 60 years, could stay with the same school and the same system. And we mix now with a lot of people competitively, but our practice is our own system. But my dad and I, or led by my dad, went and trained with a lot of people. We sought out on the sports side of things, training with a lot of people, just because he was a world champion. A lot of people didn't realise until my dad's passing that he didn't actually start martial arts till he was in his 40s.
Well, you started together, right?
Yeah. Everyone presumed that, Dad was Mr. Miyagi, who trained in Japan, and he's half Oriental, half Native American, and all of that. But yeah, no, he grew up. He was a keen footballer. That was going to be his profession, be a professional footballer. He was an electrician. He played volleyball. He had for a better word, a usual life. And then, he got into martial arts at 40, and then, pursued, the journey that brought him to being I'd like to refer him as our grandmaster now, and a world-recognised referee, and he competed internationally himself on all those things. So yeah, we mixed with a lot of people, and even though we were training him the sports side, there was always a little bit of a crossover to Kung Fu or Jiu-Jitsu, or you had an influence. But my main practice came in small circle Jiu-Jitsu with Leon J, and actually graded to a brown belt with himself, and that was week in, week out. I couldn't put a time frame on it, actually. I'd have to look back. I reckon about 5 years practice, where week in, week out, it was jiu-jitsu, basically, in more of a self-defense system rather than a sporting system or an MMA system. So I'm practiced. I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I don't advertise that we teach jiu-jitsu or any of those aspects, but I've got enough to lead a class on it, or I've got enough to say I know something about that kind of thing. We used to practice that and then do our sport afterwards, and quite often a couple of the guys would come in and join us for the benefits of both. Yourself?
It's something that I've trained under you in terms of the small circle, and it's something that I've picked up and always really enjoyed in terms of things like small joint manipulation. And, like you said, from more of a sport self-defense point of view than how to win a sporting event or win a sport. But maybe we'll get onto that later in terms of the difference between the sport and the more traditional aspects of stuff. But something that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is something that I've kind of been discovering and finding more recently. With everything that's gone on in the world now, it's all had to basically go on pause because bless them, that's really not something you can do on Zoom. So I've not been doing it recently, but I have found a local school, and I've enjoyed going back in as a white belt after a very long time of being an instructor and being the person at the front of the class. And now going back to somewhere where I've got a very shallow depth of knowledge, and I'm kind of open to receive and learn a lot of new things. So that's been really interesting because it's just it's the same world, but it's a completely different set of things. There's a lot of stuff where there's parallels, like they still talk about timing, they still talk about distance management, and all of these principles are the same, but you're almost speaking in a different language because now it's all about leverage and holds and where you can grip things and what's the strongest positions. So some things change, some things are the same. The reason I asked you about the grappling, someone we both know, they will remain nameless for this one, but they're very respected in our circle, the stand-up game. I asked them about it once and they said, no, I'm not into the man hugging. I'm not a fan of the man hugging. And it just made me laugh because I think it's interesting how the sport has developed in general with the introduction of things like mixed martial arts and MMA and UFC, and it's now started to blend styles together. So you're seeing a lot more now of the crossover between things like the grappling and the stand-up, rather than them being two separate entities.
Yeah, I can remember when UFC first came out. I even got the tape of UFC 1 somewhere on VHS. And those early ones, it was, you had a karate dude in a karate suit. You had a boxer with boxing gloves on. You had a sumo guy. You had someone that did monkey style. You had the Gracie brothers in kimonos for the jiu-jitsu. It was literally, okay, this match we have jiu-jitsu versus boxing, and let's see what's going to happen. It was very much that, and I think quite soon, like the Gracie family obviously dominated early on, and quite soon the stand-up martial art realised that they had no defence against that. Once someone was inside, and they would take it down, it was game over. And then I think they evolved the ability to be able to sort of block that off, and then striking all of a sudden became, you needed to be able to strike, because if you couldn't grapple someone down, or if you couldn't get them down, they'd take you out with strikes. And I haven't really followed the martial art, the MMA world in depth. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of that side of the sport of martial arts, but it seems to have gone, full circle a few times.
Yeah, what I found so interesting about it was exactly what you said about grapplers learning they needed to strike, and strikers learning they needed to at least have an answer for grapplers. Is, I'd say, if you look at martial arts in terms of its evolution, there's been, before pre-UFC, there was almost like a lull in its evolution. And then the UFC, where it introduced this whole idea of, well, let's actually figure out which style is superior, what works the best. I think we've seen the largest evolution in martial arts in its, since its kind of creation in a very long time. And I think it's in this recent period. And the same for our striking styles. I would say, the kickboxers of the 80s would be destroyed by the kickboxers of the 2020s, just simply because of the evolution of the sport and the evolution of our understanding of it.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! And when you say destroyed in just, I don't think you mean just in a technical sense, i.e., if you stood two people up in an octagon and fought each other. But I think you mean in just a technical and however you put it together in terms of sporting. Terminology-wise, like I still teach the traditional art. I still teach your Junzukis, your Gakuzukis, and Bob Sykes, editor of MAI, he's trained with everyone. He was doing a bit of Kushanku the other day, and I had to tag him in our own practice because of the way he was practicing it. So there's still connection to the traditional side, but because of the benefits that gives with your discipline, your self-control, and all of those kind of things. I think we're long past, or you do see it occasionally, these schools that are teaching, someone attacks you, do a Junzuki, and it's like, nah, mate, we've moved on from that honor fighting, haven't we, kind of thing.
Yeah, we have. I think that's a real interesting thing that's happened recently, is the call out of the McDojos and the exposure of a lot of fake martial artists, where because this stuff was so foreign to everyone, people could almost get away with just packaging you a load of bull and telling you that this was, the most dangerous style, the most effective way to defend yourself. But I guess with the introduction of the internet and everyone having such access to information, it's just debunked an awful lot of that recently. And I think that's where a lot of people's kind of pre-associations with it is, I still remember for the longest time, I'd say to someone, I'm a martial artist, and their first response would be, what? That would just be the thing that they go to, because that's what they think of when they come to it. And I think a lot of that comes from, people almost doing a disservice to the martial arts by taking advantage of people who are less aware, less educated on it.